Chana Dandana Yasoda Nandana Chana Dandana Yamuna Tira Banachari Yamuna Tira Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare
grateful, very happy, and I feel very blessed to be among all of you this evening. Thank you for being here. Very special gratitude to Malati Devi Prabhu and all of the leading devotees here in Columbus for energizing the city, the state, the country, the continent, the hemisphere, the world, the universe, and the cosmic manifestation, which is the accumulation of all universes. With your sincere devotion. Could everyone hear?
Yes, ma'am.
Craig, are you able to hear? Thank you. Levo. It was about 30 years ago that I first sat in this backyard to share with the people of Columbus the gift that my spiritual master, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, shared with the world. And because I'm not coming from a very academic background, I require a lot of prayers. And I'm having such sweet memories of praying under these same trees and how they have grown. And I believe it's this tree. I used to sleep in my van under that tree, and walnuts used to fall on the roof. And walnuts are very superfoods, kind of. But seeing how this tree has grown in 30 years. And seeing how some of you have aged in the last 30 years. Makes me very enthusiastic to understand how serious the goal of life is when I look in the mirror and see how I have aged in the last 30 years. And this is how we're learned, how we're taught to live on this spiritual path. At every stage of life, there are unique blessings. Happiness and distress, honor, dishonor, pleasure, pain, success, failure, victory, defeat, youth, old age, birth, death. These are the dualities of the world. When we are confused or distracted from the purpose and goal of life itself, oftentimes situations create an experience of meaninglessness. Why? What is the purpose? What I was striving to achieve really doesn't make any difference anymore. What I worked so hard for is lost. Or even if I have it, it's just not the same. Things become empty unless we can appreciate the value of the content within our experiences of life. Bhagavad Gita and the great scriptures of the world and the saints throughout history, they teach us how to navigate life with all of its changes, with all of its uncertainties, even with its disappointments, and even where inevitable death is going to take everything away. How to navigate life in such a way that we could reach the shore of our real inner aspiration. Everyone, everywhere, at all times, is seeking pleasure. Anandamayo Pyashat. Why? This walnut tree is growing in search for pleasure. The sunshine is upon it, and actually the trees are reciprocating with the sun by reaching toward the sun, because the sun gives pleasure to a tree. And when it's very, very hot out, I just came from Maharashtra state in India just a couple of weeks ago, and it was, the day I left, it was 104 degrees. And I arrived in Chicago and it was 70 degrees. And the next day it was 28 degrees and snowing. And the next day it was 85 degrees. And a day and a half later it was snowing again. So are we hot or cold? So when it's cold, the sun is very pleasing. And when it's hot, I remember our beloved godbrother Brahmananda Maharaj. I met him when he just came from Africa. And he said it was so hot. He said the sun was like our enemy. But the sun is the source of all life. Without the sun, nothing could live, no one could live. Existence in material realm, it would be total darkness and absolutely freezing. And nothing would grow. Could be no life. But yet, how could the person, like our mother, father, nourishing us with everything, be an enemy? perceptions. So much of the reality of how we experience and respond to ever-changing situations is based on our perception. We're all looking for pleasure because it's the nature of the self, the soul. Bhagavad Gita begins from this principle. Najayate mriyate va kadachit. The source of life is a part of God. And because Krishna is Satchit Ananda, every part of Krishna is Satchit Ananda. The analogy again of the sun. Krishna is compared to the sun planet, and every living entity, wherever there's life, there is the presence of a sun ray, a part of God. That is qualitatively the same as God. The sun ray gives light, gives heat. Why? Because it's the energy of the sun. And every soul is eternal, without death, full of knowledge, and filled with pleasure. But that ananda, that knowledge, and the realization of eternity is all based on understanding our relationship with our source. Of all the Vedic literatures, the Vedanta Sutra is encapsulating in very brief codes the essence. Begins Tato Brahma Jigyasa. Of all species of life, the human life provides the rare opportunity to question, who am I? Who is God? What is my real purpose? And the first verse, Janmadhyasya Yataha. It seems like a very simple philosophical principle, but how much it encapsulates the spirit of what we're looking for and how to live. The absolute truth is from whom everything emanates. The cause of all causes, sarva karana karana. When we understand our origin, we can understand who we are and what is our relationship with the origin. The sun ray, actually, in whatever circumstance the sun ray may be in, is representing the sun, planet. And similarly, the living being, the life with all beings, having its origin in God, is meant to represent God. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam pariti purvakam tadami buddha yogam tam yena mamupayantete. Krishna tells in Gita that we can only understand the origin, the truth, Krishna, God, through love. And love is realized and expressed through service, through devotion. The happiness that we're looking for is love. Everything else comes and goes. But love is the inherent nature of the soul. And that love is eternal because it is an emanation of Krishna's love. When we seek, aspire for the realization of our true nature beyond the ever-changing body and mind, then gradually we learn to see everything and everyone from that perspective. Srila Prabhupada explained, when you see a tree, the reality of what we're experiencing is very much according to our aspirations and our goals and values in life. If you're driving full speed ahead with a car and a tree is right in front of you, and you're about to crash, you're probably not thinking, oh, what kind of tree? I wonder, what kind of flowers, what type of fruits is that tree? And the Latin name is like this. And how beautiful. But the same tree, if you're freezing cold, you may be thinking, God, the wood of that tree could really keep you warm. And if you're really hot, oh, that tree, the shade of the tree can give me shelter and pleasure. But if we see through the eyes of what the acharyas, the saints, have taught us, that we see that the life of that tree is the jiva, the soul. And that the body of the tree is growing, the leaves are coming and going, the fruits may be coming or going. Why? Because there's life. When there's no life, there's nobody there. The sacredness of life is it. Wherever there's life, there is a part of Krishna. Aham bija pradapita. Krishna tells, I am the seed-giving father, mother of every living being. He doesn't say of Americans or Russians or Indians or Pakistanis or the rich or the poor or the various races or the various religions, all living beings. Vidyavanaya Sampane Brahmani Gavihastini Sunichaiva Swapaki Cha Pandita Samadarshana. Spiritual vision, enlightenment, actual knowledge is when we see every living being with equal vision. That sounds somewhat complicated. How to see every living being with equal vision? Some people are really bad people, and some people seem to be really good people, and some people are attacking us, and some people are giving their life to help us. How to see them with equal vision? To understand that the living force within everyone is a part of God. Why don't we say that? Why can't we see that? For one simple reason. Because we don't recognize that we ourselves are part of God. When you understand that you are part of God, you will naturally see the same nature of the soul within yourself, within all beings. There are so many birds singing above, and then there's an airplane shaped just like the bird. Actually, if you study an airplane, it's just an imitation of a bird. God created the bird to fly, so when we make our technology, we basically model it after the bird. We just make it more complicated. Birds are singing very sweetly, and airplanes are... but the birds are singing. And some of these birds are very beautiful, especially Radha Vijay's parakeet. I just met him. She's pleased. But some of these birds are singing, they're beautiful colors, and we're thinking, oh, how nice. But most of these birds aren't going to live more than a couple years. So what is it? What is the real happiness? The real happiness is actually the recognition that although everything is ever changing, and everything is dying on the physical level, God's creation is limitless variegatedness in which the eternal soul can experience reality and ultimately realize Krishna's love. In the impersonalistic school of philosophy, we want to eliminate desire and attachment because it all leads to disappointment and it all ends. But on the path of bhakti, which is the highest, most inclusive perspective in this sense, we understand desire and attachment is eternal and sacred. It's just misplaced in this world. We love our children. We love our parents. We love our friends and relatives. We may love our country people or humanity. Or we may love various manifestations of nature. And naturally we have desires. And naturally we have attachments. But if those attachments and desires are in harmony with our true self, then our joy is not what we take from them. Our joy is how we're pleasing and serving Krishna. With that desire to please, to serve, to love. When our perception of reality in this world is to be a representative of God's compassion, and to perceive from that perspective of our own soul, then our attachments are the root of the ultimate eternal joy. In the altar of our Krishna house in Columbus, Krishna's dancing. Radha Vrindavan Natabara. And Radharani we can perceive her in various ways, but it's like just when we come on the altar, she's telling us, just see how my Krishna's dancing. And Krishna's telling us, I'm dancing for Radha. And together they're having this beautiful dance to attract our hearts, to become attached, to God and service to God. Because that attachment, param dristva nivartate, it brings us to a state of consciousness where we could see through the lens of love, of compassion. We could see everything in a spirit of reality. I was just with one of my very dearest brothers and friends, and he was telling me he had a cataract removed from his eye. And I was thinking that's a good subject for today's talk. Now, I'm not speaking simply in terms of medical practices, but the allegory that the situations in life can uplift us with. Premanjana chodita bhakti vilochanena. When we see through the eyes of the nature of our soul, with the aspiration to serve, with devotion, we see a completely different world than everybody else, but we're seeing the same things at the same time. It's a different perception. A cataract is simply creating distortion and obstruction to seeing something the way it really is. If you remove the cataract, we see things as it is. So avidya, ignorance, is the cataract that is covering our true vision. And what is ignorance? simply not knowing who I am. I'm an eternal, loving spirit soul, beyond birth, beyond death. I'm a part of God in this world with the opportunity to be an instrument of God's love. My body, whatever condition it's in, my words, whatever type of voice I have, my mind, whatever level we could remember for, it has a beautiful purpose. And actually the purpose is not quantitative, it's qualitative. Krishna tells in Bhagavad Gita, Patram Pushpam Palam Toyam Yome Bhakta Prayachati. You can offer a leaf. Who here today is capable of offering a leaf? We may be thinking there's many people in the Krishna house backyard today. But this is the smallest tree around above us. And there's probably 1,000 times more leaves in the tree at this moment than all of us together. And they're free. However poor you are, you could find a leaf or a fruit. A flower, or a drop of water. Yes. In the morning in our temples we worship Tulasi Devi. And we offer a drop of water in a little tiny spoon. Usually it's not like a pitcher. It's just a little spoon with just a drop. If we offer that water with sincere intention to purify our existence so that we can serve with love, Krishna's pleased. And when Krishna's pleased, then we have access to Krishna's mercy. And that mercy can transform us. The body, so many uncertainties. It's not that you only suffer when you're old. In today's world, any age, suffering, mental, physical, could come to us. And little 5-year-old Prahlad, his friends asked, "Why are you so different than the rest of us?" Little Prahlad said, "Gomara acharit pragya." Now is the time to actually seek the true purpose of life, Bhagavad Dharma. Because whatever age, whatever condition, disappointment, frustration, suffering is inevitable. It's just a matter of time. It may be happening now, but we know for sure it will come. And little Prahlad told his friends that without reference to the nature of our own soul, without respecting the nature of the soul within other living beings, and without understanding our origin and our ultimate goal in Krishna, then whatever arrangements or solutions we make to problems, even if they apparently solve the problem, it's inevitable. Our solutions will lead to bigger problems than the original problems that we solved. And that's basically the crisis that the world is in today. In certain ways of science and technology, it appears that we have progressed so much in solving problems. And it's amazing how many problems we solved. My father, he just left this world. He was 99 years old. When he was a little boy, there was no such thing as television. There was no such thing as commercial airlines. And as far as telephones, you'd have to crank and crank and crank and crank, and then if you get an operator, there's about 20 other people on the same line. And you have to kind of, in India we say queue. We have to get in line for our call to get through. And usually everybody else is listening. Even when I first went to India, I never made a phone call because it costs a lot of money, which was nothing, but when you have nothing, then anything more than nothing is really a lot. But you had to book your call, sometimes a couple days in advance. And now everyone's just like, now even if you don't want to call, you just like accidentally touch the phone and you're speaking to a relative in the Himalayan mountains. How is that? And without having that, we were in anxiety. How could this not be? There was no such thing as air conditioning. Now, how can I live? How could I work? We feel that these things are necessities. But when they didn't exist, everybody was quite happy without them. But there's a problem. I'm hot. So we have to make all this air conditioning. And I don't want to crank the phone. And I don't want to dial the phone. And I don't want to press the buttons of the phone. So now I just say, brother. And it'll call New Delhi. And the brother will be, the phone will say, your sister. And these little phones have all these cameras and videos, tape recorders. Why? Because we're trying to solve problems. We want these things, but we want them more convenient and more accessible and all of this stuff. And, I use it all, so I can't complain, I can't criticize. But in solving all of these problems, look at the problems today. There's the global warming, and there's climate change. And many scientists are talking about the massive devastation of the planet if we keep going like we are. And what to speak, how the quality of life, everything becomes so fast and so electrically and technologically active that the human mind can hardly find peace. Probably less people today than ever before are even recognizing the beauty of these birds singing. And with the need for oil and the need for coal and the need for all this other stuff to maintain it, there's greed, there's poverty for people who, don't have, and there's conflicts and wars. So it's not that the things are bad. And Prahlad is not saying to his friends, the things are bad. He's not saying the technology's bad. But whatever we're doing, if we do not do it from the perspective of who we really are, and do it from the perspective of God's compassion for other living beings, if we're forgetful of our relationship with Krishna, then all of our solutions will either immediately or in time, inevitably, create bigger problems than our problems. How many diseases there are today? And yet we cured so many diseases. There's never been a time in modern history that there's more cures for diseases. But the diseases just become more complicated and more variegated. In one sense, disease is not a problem. Why do we not like disease? Because it causes suffering. Suffering to ourselves, suffering to the people that we love. The problem is suffering. And unless we understand that whatever we're doing to try to make the world a better place, or our family a better family, or our own life a better life, it needs to be done from the perspective of who we are. We're spiritual. If we understand that Krishna is the ultimate object of love for all living beings, God, and we understand that every living being is a child of God, and we understand every aspect of nature is God's energy, understand this doesn't mean theoretical. It means theory with a sincere desire to apply that theory to the way we live and the way we speak. That's bhakti. To live a life of devotion and service. Then our solutions are in harmony with the real problem of suffering. How to resolve it. How to resolve the problem of death. Resolving the problem of death means that bodies are not going to die. It means realizing I'm not my body, and helping others to realize they're not their body. And realizing you're not the body doesn't mean you're the mind, because you're not the mind either. Because the mind causes more frustration than the body, actually. So to realize we're not the body and the mind, it doesn't mean we don't exist. Jivara Swarupoi Krishnara Nityadasa means I'm an eternal loving servant of Krishna. In 1922, that's 101 years ago, our beloved Guru Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada, met his Guru Maharaj for the first time, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada. And our Srila Prabhupada, he was actually a very devout, serious follower of the independence movement of Mahatma Gandhi. He made great sacrifices to live by the principles of that movement, because the people of India were treated as a lesser people, and they were being ruled over and exploited by a ruling power. So they're fighting for independence. Non-violence through non-participation. And that means giving up a lot. Some people who were getting huge salaries had to live the simplest life. People who worked hard to get very advanced degrees in colleges rejected their diplomas. So they actually had no degrees. And some people were willing to be put in jail and killed. And Srila Prabhupada wore the uniform, the Khadi uniform, which was a declaration against the established lawmakers. He believed in it. And when he met his Guru Maharaj 101 years ago, he was told, "You are a young man, you should take the message of Lord Chaitanya, the message of Krishna, throughout the world." Very convenient being close to an airport, but it's also very inconvenient. Srila Prabhupada said, let us first get independence, then people will take us seriously, and we can give this message. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada replied that the root of all the problems is we're forgetful of our relationship with Krishna. And the solution to the problems is to see life and to live life in our relationship with Krishna. That is Krishna consciousness. And people are suffering, and people are dying, and people are exploiting each other, and in ignorance people are behaving in such a way where individual and collective karma is creating a miserable destiny, a dangerous destiny. The time is now. That's what little Prahlad said to his friends. They said, we're little children. We can do this when we become, fathers and grandfathers, mothers and grandmothers. Little Prahlad said, there's only one time we could do it, and that's now. Because when tomorrow comes, it becomes now. If we don't decide now, and we say tomorrow, then when tomorrow comes, it's now, and we'll say tomorrow. And like that, birth after birth after birth. People are so endlessly distracted from what they really want, from what we really want. And one of the greatest tragedies of this distraction is we procrastinate. It's an interesting word, procrastinate. I'm not such a linguist type of person, but even if we consider, yes, this is important, we keep putting it off. And the more we put something off, the more we become habituated to put it off. It's not that the more we put it off, the closer we are to actually doing it. It's like the more you take habit-forming drugs, the more you become addicted and dependent on that drugs, and it becomes more and more and more difficult to not do that. Well, procrastination is kind of like a drug in that sense. We know something should be done. We want to do it. But we put it off because this, then this. But every time we put it off, we become addicted and habituated to the psychology of procrastination. And either vyavasayatmaka buddhir ekeha kuruva, bahushaka hinadascha buddhayo vyavasayana. Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is very clear. Those who are actually in the path of Dharma, the path of Bhakti, they're resolute in purpose. Their aim is now, one. But the intelligence of those who are irresolute is many-branched. Is that a helicopter?
Hospital. Medical hospital.
It's a hospital helicopter. Can I give an example? Naveen, Krishna Prabhu, and Prem Vilas together smiled at me and said, sure. So by their combined sureness, I feel empowered. I was just 2 days back listening to a recording of Srila Prabhupada. And he was talking about progress. He was actually speaking in Vrindavan, India. And he was talking about the progress of material civilization. He said, I have been to New York City. And this is in the mid-1970s. Before all these Middle East countries and Far East countries, and everybody was building skyscrapers and developing all sorts of economic prosperity. New York City at that time was the wealthiest, most developed city in the world. And he said, there's skyscrapers, there's so many roads, there's so many, the most millionaires at that time were in New York City. The most billionaires were in New York City. He said, but when I'm in New York City, almost constantly I'm hearing the sirens of ambulances. And I'm almost constantly hearing the sirens of fire trucks. And I'm constantly hearing the sirens of police patrol cars. And they don't put on their sirens when everyone's nice. How many have been to New York City? How often do you hear sirens? When you're trying to give a lecture, you're very receptive to hearing it. They're almost always some... So what is the progress? However much progress, there's still so much danger, fire, suffering, disease, death. So what is real progress? We could be in New York City and live in enlightenment. Or we could live in a cave in the Himalayan jungles and live with enlightenment. Or we could live in any situation here in Columbus, Ohio, the great city of Columbus. And be enlightened. And this is what Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur was saying to Srila Prabhupada. The whole world is in need, not of a sectarian religion, but of a genuine understanding of the greatness, the beauty, and the love of God, and our real nature in relationship with God. So our motivation, love of God, is expressed in this world through compassion to others. Paradukha dukhi. A Vaishnava, Srila Prabhupada said the definition of a Vaishnava he gives different definitions. Sometimes he would say the definition of a Vaishnava is to live without envy. In another place he says the definition of a Vaishnava is paradukha dukhi, that another person's happiness is my happiness and another person's suffering. I feel for that. And I want to make a difference to whatever way I can. Which is an expression of being without envy. And the definition of a Vaishnava is one who loves God, loves Vishnu. And to love Vishnu is to be without envy, and to be without envy is to be a well-wisher of everyone. Just yesterday I was reading some notes I took of a recording where Srila Prabhupada said, our mission is successful if we can help one person turn toward Krishna. Now he's speaking in this way, if we could turn 100 million toward Krishna, that's wonderful. But if we can help one person toward Krishna qualitatively, if that's the most we could do, we don't have to compare. Our life has infinite value in whatever position we're in. If we're on our deathbed and we're paralyzed, if we could be a well-wisher on behalf of Krishna to another, Krishna will see that with the same significance as giving a lecture to 100,000 people, or giving prasad and charity to 1,000,000 people a day. Krishna sees our intention. In 1969, Srila Prabhupada came to Columbus, Ohio. And there was a little house, and he had so many wonderful, beautiful conversations. Allen Ginsberg, a very influential poet and teacher of the time. He had hours and hours of discussions with Srila Prabhupada, asking questions, sharing their hearts. It was so beautiful here in Columbus. And then he spoke in the Hitchcock Hall of Ohio State University. And I believe 2,000 students attended. And Srila Prabhupada, after the talk, he began to chant kirtan. And he requested everyone to dance. And 2,000 students enthusiastically responded to Srila Prabhupada's compassion and chanted loudly and danced. And this was the first time in the history of the Western world that students danced in kirtan. If you like, you can clap. On behalf of Srila Prabhupada, thank you very much. But and Srila Prabhupada was so excited. He was writing his leading devotees all over the world that these college students, if we just present Krishna consciousness in a nice way, they're very enthused to chant the holy names and dance. And it's very appropriate. The first place in the Western world that students came together in a college to dance right across the street from that college. On the altar, Krishna and Radharani are dancing. So this is the solution to the problems. Everyone wants to be happy, and everyone wants to be happy, and ultimately the soul wants to be happy in God's love. The soul wants to dance. But through all our labors and all of our struggles for gratification and all of our struggles to eliminate anything that's interrupting our gratifications, we remain in a dream and the soul is fast asleep. The soul's eternally alive. It's the source of our consciousness. But it's in this dream that I am a particular body and I'm in this particular mindset, and we're so caught up in our past and we're so fearful of maybe what might happen in the future, and we're so concerned about what other people may say or may think or may do, and we're just entangled. Well, through this chanting of Radha and Krishna's names, through this chanting of God's names, and through this spirit of servitude, striving to live with the character that will please the Lord and our gurus. Our souls will wake up. Jeev Jago, Jeev Jago. Wake up, spirit soul. And when the spirit soul wakes up, we dance. Forever. Radha Vrindavan Natapara. In Columbus, they're very directly just, whoever comes, they're just inviting, come and dance with us. Would you like to dance now? Thank you very much. So everyone, please stand up.